So a lot of things are going on. But what you also understood already, MOOC can not only be pronounced differently, but it can also be very different things. The commonalities are they are online, they are massive, but massive can already be when you have 500, 600. Massive, you would either be able to trigger this through reputation or through engaging celebrities. They are free for participation, but on the other hand, you might be under pressure to develop a business model. They would not necessarily award credits, but something like certificates, badges, whatsoever, which is a problem because if a student learns, many of those who learn, they want credits, they want to use it for their degrees. And I think there has been an initial focus on computer sciences, also because the people who started the MOOCs came from that disciplines. But what we see also that the profiles are increasingly diversifying. So we have profit, non-profit companies and combinations of them, private companies with individual course providers like Udacity, where every individual can go and offer a course, private companies with work with universities like Coursera. You have university-led initiatives like the edX or the Future Learn. You have, Leuphania is not a national initiative. You have a national initiative like the Future Learn. You have initiatives which are clearly driven by regions and languages like the Mirada X or the Open Up Ed. You have different thematic foci and different targets regarding the learners. There is clearly a tendency not only to include academic but also non-academic courses. And I think what is interesting, the courses are, most of them are real. You will find some that are taped. And given that they are real, they reflect in a certain way also the diversity that you have in university teaching around the world. So why MOOCs? Well, there would be three good arguments where we are not entirely sure how true they are. They're probably a bit true, but we don't know how true. So it's the lower cost, better quality, more learning opportunities. What do you want more? Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah? This is all which will solve all our financial problems. Ministries are happy, universities will be happy, students will be happy. Let's have a look at that. More learning opportunities. This is the formula that Coursera uses in presentations. They say if you want to teach if you can teach in on-campus learning 400 students in a year, but in a MOOC you can teach 100,000 students in the year, you would have to do 250 years on campus learning to reach the same number of students as you do through one MOOC. So there is talk about, I mentioned it already, the democratization of knowledge. Everybody can have access. Higher education gives you then better chances to get a job. The best courses for the impoverished people in the US and around the world. And I think there is a lot of very benevolent thought in it, but also some clever business ideas. The question is, does it really work like this, or what are the conditions, and who really benefits from the MOOCs? I think what you can see now is a vast group are people who have already a higher education degree and who take them in addition. But there are also a lot of students who take them in parallel to their own teaching. India was just mentioned. That's probably a good case. A lot of Indian students, while at their university, in parallel they take MOOCs, and this is probably also a phenomenon in other regions. And then the other issue is that there is a high dropout of MOOC courses, 80%. This sounds shocking because 80% of 100,000, that means 80,000 drop out. I'm one of these dropouts. I have signed up to 3 MOOCs and I dropped out after a while because I didn't have time to follow. I just signed up because I was curious, and I think a lot of people do that. So even if you have 20% of 100,000, it still means 20,000 reach their goal. Not too bad. That's a bit the concentration that was an early Coursera self-mapping exercise. So you can see it's not only the US, it's massive in Europe and also some parts in Asia, less so in Africa. You can clearly see how the language barriers, but also then sometimes the technical conditions, internet access and. Let's talk about the quality of learning and teaching. It's real courses. You have enrollment, registration. There is a time schedule, which I think is for many people beneficial. You can't say, oh yes, I do that next week in 2 weeks' time. And you have to do certain things on time, otherwise you can't follow the course. There are short lectures, very short lectures. Then there are assignments and tests, and every student has to engage with the material. And that's the argument of the proponents of MOOCs. They say in a classroom, I have always one who answers the question. Whereas when they learn through a MOOC, everybody has to answer the question for himself. The MOOCs learned a lot from the Khan Academy. Maybe you have heard about Khan. He was, in fact, in economics, if I'm not mistaken, and he had family members, nieces and nephews, who had problems with their math exercises. And so he started to instruct them via telephone and Skype of how to do in math. And later on, he started to shoot little videos, and he found that this works much better. And then he developed what is called nowadays the Khan Academy, has been or is in the process of being translated in many languages. It offers you short lectures, very modularized, on everything you have to learn in school and secondary school. And the idea of Khan was also the flipping the classroom, that you should not go to school to hear your teacher talking. That you can do at home if you have the video material. But the teacher in school could help the individual students to understand what he has learned and to further improve. So this is the change then that you will see in the MOOC. You will not, when you get on your MOOC, you will not have a 1.5 hours lecture, but it will be broken down in 10, 13, 12 minutes bits. Yeah, and then you can stop. You will have a short assessment, or you will do something else, and then you can go on with the next exercise, with the next bit of your course. That is another argument. It's also a good means to improve learning, because in a normal lecture hall, you don't really know who understands what. Yeah, with a MOOC you can find out. Like if you see the cross there up in the upper left side. If you, out of 160,000 students, 2,000 give the wrong answer, this is significant. If in a normal class, out of 40, only one doesn't understand, you say, well, what can it be? Yeah? But if it's 2,000, you better ask yourself, is there something that we can improve? So some people think it's a good way to systematically improve learning materials and methods. The question is it really encouraging critical thinking? And the MOOC proponents would say, well, it's not only just about the automatic assessment that we offer, but there's also a lot of peer and self-rating. And they make the point that it is very close to what a teacher would rate. So what you can see is on the line is the teacher grading, and then the red is the self-grading, and blue is the peer grading. And they seem to be quite close together. And the point is also made that you have a great support net when you go on a MOOC, because if you have an answer, there might be somebody around the world, even if it is 4 o'clock in the morning in Barcelona, who would be ready to provide an answer to that. And another issue is that there are not only virtual learning groups, but in some places people came together and also established physical learning groups. Another argument for the quality is that it is not somebody, that the teacher is not just, or the professor is not just entering the classroom and starts his lecture, but in fact, if you want to do a MOOC, it needs intensive preparation. So you will spend a lot of time on preparing that. There's an estimate that preparing a full MOOC would need about 600 man-hours, of which 400 come from the professor. I think this is what they found out at Duke University. The small learning units are helpful. It's personalized learning. The student can learn what he or she needs, and they can learn at their own pace. And potentially, as I said already, you could flip the classroom if you would use it in a combination of online learning and on-campus learning you could use more time for individual students. And the other point is then that there is a large, I mentioned that already, large amount of data is created through which you can systematically improve learning material. The issues that could come up here are that there are obviously limits to automatic assessment. So if you really want to give, let's say in a humanity course, people credits for this, you would probably have to read the essays. There are experiments currently with automatic essay grading, but that's still an issue in the development. Then one critical point that has been made is also the issue of the quality. It is always assumed that if top institutions offer a course, that also means automatically that these are the best courses. This might not necessarily be the case. You can easily imagine subjects, disciplines, where you would rather like to have a regional institution providing that and not the course from MIT, Harvard, which is geographically very distant from you and your problems. And then another issue is the question of data protection. If a lot of data is gathered by the universities or by the private for-profit companies that run the MOOCs, what is happening with this data? How transparent are learners? There is a keen interest in companies as well to learn more about how their staff learn. So there are some critical issues there. Lowering cost. I think this is an important argument everywhere, but in particular in the US. What you can see here is the steep increase in costs in the US regarding consumer items, gas, medical care, and then on top of it, college and tuition fees, which have since '85 increased by 559%. 559%. So there, lowering cost would be a keen argument. In San Jose State University, students can get a credit course from a MOOC for a third of the price for an on-campus course. In May 2013, Georgia Tech University, US, has launched a MOOC master's degree in computer sciences for the price of $7,000 US. I don't know how much they would charge for this course regularly, but I would assume it must be something between 30 and 40,000 US dollar. Yeah, so it's a fraction of what it would cost you, and you get a Georgia Tech diploma in the end. The question is, will that fly in Europe? As in many countries, we have either no or low tuition fees, and most of the universities are public universities that are also mainly publicly funded.